Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Robbins, and welcome to Life, Death, and the Space Between. I always love interviewing mediums to hear their perspective on things, and today's interview with MaryAnn DiMarco is next level. We talk specifically about spirit guides. She has a new book out called The Guides book, which I love because it literally lays out for you step by step how to connect with your spirit guides. And in this conversation, MaryAnn does an incredible job of making sure that you understand how simple it is to connect with your guides. I think often we think of guides as they're going to come in, they're going to have like this voice of God, which we talk about in the podcast, but it's really much simpler than that. And just to give you a little bit of background on MaryAnn is an author, motivational speaker, and internationally recognized teacher and psychic medium. And part of why she's so incredible is because she's able to put everything in plain speak. She makes you understand intuition in the most simple ways. And she has been featured in the New York Times, the Sunday paper, Elle, Good Day New York, Women's Health, Mind, Body, Green, and so many more publications. And part of the reason is because she is so grounded and relatable. I know you are going to love this episode. She gave me a reading afterwards, which I'm not going to share because it shares some personal stuff about my family and my kids. But all I can tell you is she nailed it. She understood and described each one of my kids exactly as they are. She put me at ease for a lot of my fears and concerns. And it just illuminated how incredible she is at what she does. So I think you will love this episode of understanding how you can connect with your spirit guides. So go check out her new book, The Guides book, if you need a way to just walk through how to connect with your spirit guides. And with that, I bring you my interview with MaryAnn DiMarco.
We need at our table of awareness the logician, but equally we need the intuitive, we need the mystic.
I almost died. I was allowed to go to the very precipice of death, of life and death, and look over the edge. And I was allowed to behold what was there and allowed to come back. Most people aren't.
When we talk about being aligned with ourself or being aligned with our soul or hearing our higher self, that's really what we're talking about, is being connected to that divine part of ourself, that light-filled part of us that is connected to God energy, that is connected to everybody here and every experience we've ever had.
If more doctors, more professionals can open up to use intuitive gifts in their work, that's really important.
Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Robbins, and welcome to Life, Death, and the Space Between. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and medium, and here we explore life, death, mediumship, near-death experiences, consciousness, and what it all means. Welcome, MaryAnn, to Life, Death, and the Space Between.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
So we were chit-chatting before, but I am so excited because I was thinking as I was reading your book, which the title of is amazing, The Guide book, guides in the S in parentheses, to talk specifically about guides today. Because I think I've dabbled in it a little bit, and I've talked with many people about it sort of extemporaneously. Is that the word I'm looking for? Mm-hmm. But I want to first learn from you a little bit about your story, because I always like to give people a little bit of background on how someone came into the work that they're doing.
I feel like I was born into the work that I was doing. My mom is very into spirituality, into metaphysics, into all the things. And she started to teach me how to meditate and talk to me about ascended masters and all the kind of woo-y things at a very, very young age, 5, 6, 7 years old. I was learning all about this. And I thought it was normal at that age to grow up that way. And it wasn't until I got a little older that I found it to be unusual. And I very much wanted to normalize myself, right, and whatever that looked like, because I felt so out of place with this school of thought. But I was always seeing and hearing and feeling energy and spirit around me. That was something that I just knew to be true. And my mom never took that away from me. She never tried to explain it away. She was wonderful in validating that, and not in over validating way too, just an acknowledgement. So it was perfect. And as I got older, of course, I denied and didn't want anything to do with it and went about my crazy teenage life, got into my 20s. And then in my 30s, my life took a huge change. My marriage ended. I was experiencing deep grief from a loss. I had 2 little children. I didn't really know where my life was going to go. And I wound up going to this spiritual teacher, Pat Longo. She has since passed. She just passed,
right?
She just passed.
Yeah.
And I was taken to a place of healing. I mean, she really just opened me up. I thought she was a psychic medium. And I said to her, I would love a reading. And she said, I don't read people. I help people get in touch with their psychic abilities. And I always say it was sort of like an automatic channel where I just said to her, I think I'm supposed to see you now. And I just went in, and in a few weeks, I was understanding how to read as a psychic medium. And that lasted for a while as a psychic medium. And then it started to change for me where I was really feeling called to teach people how to do this. At one point, I kind of called myself the psychic because so many people were coming to me, asking me, how can I make a connection? How can I hear them? How can I hear my guidance? And so now it's really morphed into me teaching everything I've learned. And I continue to do that. That's why I write the books.
So what do you think there's such a drive now? I mean, I don't know if it's social media. I don't know if it's that it's more accepted. I know when I first had my kind of opening experience, I didn't talk about it because I was so concerned about what other people would think, what people would say. But now it feels like so many people are identifying as mediums, are connecting. What do you think has happened that has caused such a shift to occur in that?
I think energetically there's a shift in our earth and in our world that is having people be called to make a deeper connection, whether you're looking to be a psychic medium or not. I have heard every time I went to write my last book and this book, wake them up. Wake them up, wake them up from my guides. And I think we're all kind of coming into this most authentic part of our souls that we know how to do this. We were born with this. And I think that's why it resonates with so many people now. We're starting to realize that this really isn't outside of ourselves. This is something that resides within us. It's given to us. And why not start to utilize it? And to your point, I think social media has absolutely brought attention to it. My only concerns there is it becoming performative? And right. And that's really where I wonder sometimes. Ask yourself the intention behind your connection. Why do you want to make connection? Why do you want to do this work? And the answers are right there. And hopefully it brings you to a nice grounded answer.
That's actually one of the questions I wanted to ask as you were talking about this is I get a lot of questions often, like, how does someone find the right medium? How do they know how to connect in the right way? And I do worry as well, because I think it's such a beautiful healing modality when done correctly. But when people are doing it for performative reasons or because, I'm a medium now and I can connect, how do you advise someone to sort of differentiate that for themselves? If they don't feel, and we're going to talk about guides in a minute, but if they don't feel yet like they have a deep connection with a guide or someone or their own higher self, how can they make a good judgment on that?
I think you have to pay attention to your intuition and pay attention. It's a great way to start, actually. Making connection is, who do I feel like I'm in alignment with? How are they speaking about the work? And does it resonate with me? If it resonates with you and it feels like there's a flow in your body with what you're hearing, go with that. That might be your person. And try different people out. I always say, make sure if you want to do this work professionally, especially, please learn how to do it responsibly. There's a lot of weight that comes with being, especially a medium. And I talk about in my last book, care, concern, compassion in your delivery, an understanding of your energy and what you're putting out there. And I think that when you see it become performative, just stop for a moment and ask yourself, is this in alignment with me? Also, word of mouth. Word of mouth is great. If you keep hearing of somebody, hey, I went to this psychic medium or I went to this healer, whatever it is that you're searching for, you keep hearing about them, make an appointment with that person, because word of mouth is everything. So good.
So let's shift into guides and then we'll come back to mediumship a little bit. But first, can you define specifically what a spirit guide is?
A spirit guide, we all have a universal team on the other side, made up of spirit guides, your loved ones, angels, ascended masters, higher level beings, whatever your translation is. But spirit guides specifically are a team of energy that is here for you to help guide you in your life. Most importantly, however, is that not only are they helping guide you, but they are highlighting your higher self. They are highlighting the higher self voice that you already have living within you. It is the idea that you came here knowing your life, understanding that you signed up for some lessons, and your guides are here to help you hear those lessons and help you figure them out. If you say yes, they're giving you the breadcrumbs in order for you to co-create your life, manifestations, figuring out your soul contracts. And that's how I use guides.
Because in many ways, when I was reading the book, I was thinking, I'm always looking through the psychological lens. Like, so how do we know when our guides are present for us? How do we sense the different energies? How do we know that it's not just our regular mind talking to us? How can we start that process?
There's a couple of ways. First thing you want to do is believe that they exist. Our mind is very powerful. And if we can shift into a positive belief system that surrenders over to the idea that these energies are there helping us on the other side, we are already starting the wheels in motion. Because our mind is starting to formulate along with the energy that is around us. They're believing in us. We start to believe in them. Immediately, we start to open the doors for communication. And our ego, our doubts, our fears, our habitual minds are going to get in the way. They're going to say to you, you're making that up. It's going to say, you can't connect with guides. You're not a psychic. You can't do that. Just ask that to step aside for a minute. Just for a minute, because you'll get curious as to why I keep showing up later on. And that's how you can work with your guides. And if we can get into that belief system, we can ask those parts of ourselves to just step aside for a moment and then develop a spiritual practice that works for you and be consistent, because we're trying to exercise a muscle here. Meditation, taking a walk, journaling, or automatic writing, direct line from spirit in your communication. I speak to them just like I'm speaking to you now. I'm very casual. I'm super laid back with my guides. I talk to them while I'm in the car. I speak to them while I'm at the beach. I think the way I receive them is because I've been trained a lot too in what I do for a living, is that remember that they're going to come in your own voice. Yes, they have different energies. Yes, if you're automatic writing, especially, they will sound different, but they always sound like they are giving you some sort of direction. There's something there. If you say to yourself out loud, I really think I should take this job, and you keep saying it, I think this is the job for me. I think this is the job for me. But then you turn it around and as if someone's speaking to you, you know that job is for you. You know you should say yes and take that job. And it feels like you have a flow in your gut with your claircognizance. That's a wonderful way of starting to hear and trust their guidance. It's the way that I started. I just surrendered into knowing that they are around me, developing a spiritual practice in order to make connection, and then allowing that information to be combined with what I know to be true. The best part of it too is that you can be super authentic when you do it. You can do it in whatever style works for you.
But how do you know that that is your guide speaking to you and not just you maybe telling yourself what you want to hear? Like, should I be in this relationship? Yes, this is the right relationship for you. This is the person for you. Like, how do you I mean, I know how you differentiate at this point, but how does someone who's new to this, particularly, again, from the psychological lens, if I had someone in my office who's like, my spirit guides are telling me that this person is the right person for me. And for me sitting there, it's so blaringly obvious that this relationship is a complete train wreck and it's not going to end well. Is that then like, oh, the spirit guides are saying this because this is the path the person's supposed to be on? Or is this them convincing themselves of something that is not true?
Yeah, depending on the individual and the energy. So if I was reading that person and you're sitting across from them, spirit would absolutely say, are you sure about that? Are you sure you're not telling yourself something that you want to hear? And 5-second rule is a great way to discern the difference. A 5-second rule will say, what do you really know to be true? And in that 5 seconds, that person might say, well, I'm sitting across from a therapist. Maybe there is something wrong here if I'm questioning my relationship. They might say that, might come up that way. It might say, relationship's just wrong for you. And then they say, yes, but that continued thought is probably us, us trying to make it fit because it's keeping us in our comfort zone. I did that for many years, many years. I was a yes, but this relationship is going to work. Yes, but I really believe in it. But underneath it all, That deep inner knowing knows what is true. It never lies to you. Never. We will excuse it away.
Right.
For sure.
We don't want to listen to it.
Absolutely. I certainly didn't want to listen to it. I had no interest in hearing the word divorce. None.
But were you hearing it?
Yes.
Or
I was feeling it. I was hearing it. I was knowing it. And this is before I was practicing. This is before I was a psychic medium. There were dreams. There were insecurities that came along with it. And this is no hate on my ex, by the way. We were very amicable, but there was a knowing there that I just knew to be true. And when I started doing this work, I realized that a lot of those moments in my life were them. And if we could start to have an active practice with them, we will realize that those deep thoughts, those inner knowings, that is truth. And that's what you should be paying attention to. That's really what they're trying to highlight.
So it really is so subtle, because I think often people think that they're going to hear like the voice of God coming through, like, don't do this.
Yes, and I describe it that way all the time. I love that you did it that way. You're channeling. I will say, I used to think it was this loud, booming voice for many, many years. That was like, MaryAnn, we are here, ready to, that the heavens were going to open up.
I feel like there was a movie like that, like where it's like with Morgan Freeman. Was that it?
It has to be. But it is far more subtle than that. When you get into a practice with them, it's very obvious. Like I said, it's like having a conversation with you. But I had to really do a lot of reflection to understand how I missed it all those years, how I denied it all of those years. And they're very clever. They're not extremely cryptic about it. We, however, will explain things away, and I'm pretty stubborn as well. And I wanted what I wanted. Didn't want my dream shattered in many ways. I didn't want to be wrong. And I had to understand that those moments, that knowing, that is them. And yes, it can be very subtle and slight, but if we can get ahead of that, or we can join it in the moment, that's when we can start working with them in the most productive ways.
It's been a while since I've talked to you about what I'm up to. I want to first start by thanking so many of my supporters who have supported me on Patreon and in my Circle community. What's so exciting now is we have my new Circle community up and running, where if you want to contribute to supporting the podcast, you can do so at different levels for different values. So head on over to my Circle group. You can actually find the link in the show notes below. And there's opportunities to continue to support the podcast. And I have to say, your support of the podcast is frankly what has kept this podcast going over time. I have been funding the podcast solely by myself. I get a little bit of money in advertising dollars, but not a lot. So anything that you can give, if you have found value in this podcast, and it's not just giving without anything back, I will give back to you. You will be a part of this community with opportunities for discounts and conversations and ask Amy anythings. But it's a great opportunity for you to support what hopefully has helped you over the many, many years. Also, there's so many other ways now that you can work with me. I am offering a group course called Live Your Life Backwards, which is finishing its first cohort this winter and has been absolutely incredible. There's retreats coming up. There's workshops. There's one-on-one sessions with me. So many options that we can work together. So make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed to my podcast, and make sure you're subscribed to my newsletter, where you will get a free soul wisdom workbook to help you dig deeper into the virtues that you want to be living in this lifetime. We all need so much more spirituality now. We are in a spiritual crisis, and I am giving you so many tools to tap into your own spirituality. So check out, and don't forget to subscribe to Life, Death, and the Space Between so you never miss an episode. So how do you feel like they were showing up for you when you weren't listening? Because I think this is important for people to understand how this might be happening for them too.
I could give you an example. I write about this one in the book. I had a boyfriend when I was very young, and he was not the most kind of individuals. And a little later on, he somehow found me and asked me to meet him. And everything in my body was saying, "Don't meet him. Don't do it. Don't meet him. Don't meet up with him." It had been years, but I was curious, I guess, or stubborn, or I really don't even know what was driving me to go see him. And I kept hearing it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. I went and I got in the car to leave, and I went to go turn my ignition on, and the car failed. It would not start. And I remember thinking at that time, I was so young. And I just thought, well, thank you. I just said it out loud. There was something about knowing that I was being protected at that time, but I denied it the entire day. If I went and met him, I don't know what would have happened. I can't sit here and say that something terrible would have happened or anything. And there would have been a lesson in that. And I would have taken that and I would have learned the lesson, I'm sure. But at that moment, when I started to reflect on guides and in my life and all the times they've been trying to get through to me, that's one that really stuck out, that they were just so loud. And I just didn't want to listen until they said, too bad. Now we're going to just not make it happen at all.
Yeah, it's interesting as you're talking about this, because I just had a situation last week, or maybe not, a couple weeks ago, where I felt like there was this divine intervention. I didn't think anything, but I was waiting at a stoplight to cross the street in my car, and I was the first one in line, and it's a very busy intersection. Like, you can't go very far very quickly because it was rush hour, and the light turned green, and for some reason, I don't know why, I didn't go. Like, I was totally paying attention, and in that next moment a car came flying through the red light. And I said, thank you, guys. Like, just in that moment. Now, the whole experience took no more than 30 seconds. I mean, it was like, and if I wasn't in this relationship with my guides, I think I would have just been like, oof, that was lucky. But I really felt like there was the whole, in my mind, I was like, I wonder why I didn't just go, because it's not like me to be like, just, I'm like, all right, on to the next thing. And when that car came through, I was like, holy, that felt like exactly that moment that you're talking about, of like, spirit just stepped in and was like, you're not going to go.
This makes me beam. Those moments for me, because I teach this so much, it's so, it's what we kind of, what I hope for all people to get to, where it becomes an instinct, where your conversations aren't even very deliberate anymore, that they are just instinctual. And because it becomes part of our senses, because we're using all of the senses to connect with them, and we're paying attention to my favorite Claire, the claircognizance, just that knowing, I should not go right now. I will stay here just for a moment.
But I don't even think, right, like, it wasn't even that, I didn't even like process it like that until after it happened.
After, and you're like, wow. Right. When I was about 17, I was helping a person move their car. My friend was driving behind me. I was driving this other person's car, and I heard, pull over, there's going to be an accident. And I just pulled over. And sure enough, right then and there, right in front of me, an accident. Car went under one of those big 18-wheelers. You kind of, and at that age, I thought, well, that was weird. When you start to, I encourage people to reflect, because they've always been talking to you. And if you're really trying to understand how they sound, try to remember some of these moments, because they happen to everybody. There's been a time for, I believe, everyone where they've heard, please don't do that, or do that. Say yes to that. And you're like, I'm so glad I said yes.
Right. But they're so subtle, these moments, I guess.
It is. I think sometimes the validation can be quite shocking. I always like that spirit has done it for me in a way where they're going to show me the result in a big way, like an accident happening right in front of you. And you're like, oh my goodness, wow. It gets your attention.
Right.
I think that if the outcome was subtle, we might really miss it then. We might go, well, that was a coincidence, or, oh, well, when there's something that's really shocking that you cannot deny, pay attention to that, because that will pair up that subtle voice with the outcome. And you'll start to hear it in a way that is undeniable.
So with their spirit guides, you said we have many. So when I meditate, I always have like two that come through the most profoundly. And I know their names and everything. Then I was playing on AI, and I was just toying with like, who are my spirit guides? And I got different names. So does that invalidate what I'm hearing? Or how many guides are there? Do they have different roles at different times? Are there more prominent ones? Are there like background ones? How does secondary players, primary players?
We have like a B team, an A team.
Right.
I have seen, in my experience, through channeling for myself and others, that we have many guides, and that these guides can change based on what we are going through in our lives, and that the representation of them, even the way they appear, can be very symbolic if we choose to translate why they are here. If I see it, for argument's sake, if I see an Egyptian around somebody, I might say, wow, you're really working on spiritual communication. And that Egyptian figure might be something that truly resonates with that person. I'm always saying that when I read, I speak in someone's spiritual language. And your guides are probably going to try and represent themselves in ways that resonate with you most. That's the hope, at least. Sometimes they're a little different, and that's fun. Actually, you get to go down a little rabbit hole as to why you're seeing what you're seeing, to maybe expand your breadth of knowledge. I always say, too, that we have one guide that ushers us in and ushers us out, and that helps assign these other guides. I talk about mine in the book. He's got the typical, like the long white beard, and I just call him Joe because that's the name I felt like giving him. Kim Russo's a great medium, and she said, from which lifetime would you like their name from? And I thought that was really good. So try not to I tell people, don't get hung up on the names, but by all means, if you get the names, go with it, and you can name them yourself. It doesn't really matter what their names are. But that's how I look at guides from all walks of life I've seen.
But you see them, right? You see.
Around others, I see them if I'm reading.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That happened pretty early on when I was in spiritual classes. I started seeing these energies that didn't make any sense to me as a medium. I didn't feel like it was a loved one coming through. And I usually see them in threes around people. And I started seeing like celestial angels or figures of faith. And it was very odd to me. And so I just started saying what I was seeing and soon realized that I was seeing people's guides and that they had something to say. For myself, I see them in meditation, mostly. In meditation, in my mind's eye and my third eye. That's how I make connection with them. And even when I'm reading somebody, it's the third eye that I'm seeing.
So for people who don't see them, they might hear, they might be clairaudient, and they might hear a different voice that's coming through.
Yeah, a lot of people struggle with the I see. And I always tell people, you can work on it this way because spirit loves to use our imagination to co-create. So allow yourself to open up your imagination. It doesn't matter. They're still activating the third eye for you in some way, in your own style. And I always say, well, what do you think your guide looks like? Have fun with it. And I might hear somebody say, I don't know. I've always thought them to be indigenous or whatever. Great. Go with that. Go with that. And allow yourself that imagery to flow in. Allow the imagery to flow in, allow it to expand. And then you can add it into a meditation, however you like to do it. If you really struggle with seeing, write about your guides. Because a lot of people, when their eyes are closed, it's very difficult. Not seeing is not always everyone's jam. You can always use all of the senses too. What do they feel like to you? Are they a large presence? Sometimes when I'm reading big groups, when I've been doing talks in big groups, I feel really big energies around me. Higher level energies, planetary energies, whatever they are. And I just feel their presence come in. I don't necessarily always see them, but I feel like I'm not alone. I never feel like I'm alone. Mm-hmm. I always feel like I have somebody with me.
Are these presences, these feel different than like an ascended master or an angel?
Well, okay. So angels for me feel differently, yes, than a guide. Ascended masters depends on your translation and how it resonates with you. I was always taught about ascended masters. I think I use them the same way I would use spirit guide, but to your point, they have different layers for me. Surely there is this idea of origin and where they come from for me that feel very different from one another. Some of them feel like they were very earthly at one point. Some of them feel very planetary and really not of this world. So it really depends on how I'm feeling or what I'm channeling and why they are there. Angels, however, have a very different vibe for me. And because when we ask angels to come in, and I don't consider myself an angel expert, but I do love to call in Archangel Michael for protection. I call in Raphael for healing. They have a little bit more of a descriptive job for me. They're more pointed. I know why they are there. Mm-hmm. And then our loved ones are still part of our universal team, but different than a spirit guide for me. Loved ones are coming in with that beautiful reassurance. I am here. All is well. I see what's going on in your life. You could talk to me anytime. So there's this beautiful love that if you've had that relationship with your loved one on the other side, you can kind of feel that come through.
So so loved ones are sort of like teachers. I mean, loved ones are loved ones. Mm-hmm. Spirit guides are like teachers.
Yes.
And ascended master and angels are sort of like professionals.
I feel like the angels are like your miracle. They're coming in and they're doing some of the heavy lifting that maybe we can't do for ourselves.
Got it.
Our guides are saying, can we do this together? And you'll learn so much along the way. And some of the ascended masters that you're talking about, mine are really to the point. So let's say, for argument's sake, I'm all up in my ego, comparison syndrome or imposter syndrome, whatever's coming up for me. And they'll just say to me, can you just go do your job? Can you just get to work and go do your job?
Get out of your own way.
Get out of your own way. You've done this work. You understand where it's coming from. And we need you to do your job right now. That's most of what I hear at this point. And then there's Joe, who is kind of like my sounding board. Joe's like my spiritual therapist. He's my guide therapist. He gets all of my stuff.
Got it. Okay. And now you have that relationship, right? You've built that relationship over so much.
Yeah, Joe hears all, and it's really, he's Melchizedek. Melchizedek is when I was going through Kyle Gray's deck, I love Kyle Gray, and he has a wonderful deck. He does great decks for guides. And I was sifting through one of his decks and I said, oh my gosh, that's Joe. And it was Melchizedek. It was, and he's a pretty powerful guide. And so he's my sounding board.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he has all of my nonsense. Poor Joe.
He's the one. He's the one.
He's so tired.
So with all of this, how do you see psychology interacting with how people can use their guides?
Love this question because I'm talking about Joe kind of being like my therapist.
Yeah, it's like the perfect segue.
It is.
Joe.
He's Joe, and Joe hears all of it. The way I use my guides is, and what I have learned through other people like Gabby Bernstein, and I've been to therapy, and I've just learned different types of modalities. And the way I've incorporated into my own practice is that I go and I do the deep dives with my guides, and I get very curious about why these roadblocks or these lessons are coming up in my life. We all come here with a set of lessons that we've signed up for. The experience and how they come into fruition, I think, is at the good grace of the universe. I don't know that we choose the experience, because I think I've been saying a lot, and you might have heard me say it before, like, who would come back, quite honestly.
Right.
So
especially
I think
now.
I mean, I wouldn't. So exactly. But the lesson itself is there for us if we want to further our soul's enhancement, further our soul's journey. And so I say yes to the lessons. And what I notice is that these lessons can be on repeat in your life, and they can come up in various ways, whether it's fear, doubt, ego, imposter syndrome, whatever it is for you. And what I realized is that when I started to get curious about it, which is very therapeutic, where did this start for me? Why do I keep choosing this? It allowed me to do a deep dive into who I am as a human being and all of the experiences in my life. And I started to go there with my guides in meditation, through automatic writing, or just like I'm speaking to you. Who gave this to me in the first place? Where did this start? Who, what, where, when, why, how? And when I realized that they would show me different ages, maybe I was 5 and someone was criticizing me. Maybe I was young teens and my parents were getting divorced, and they started taking me back to all these places in my life. And then I just started a dialogue with them. What is it that I could be learning? How can I make this more productive for myself? How can I answer this differently so that I start to shift the energy within self in order to resolve this issue or answer it in a better way when it comes up again? Because it often comes.
But don't you feel like you have to be at a certain place of honesty with yourself?
Yes, you
about
have to be
hearing
accountable.
what they're saying.
I love it. Yes. I had to really learn accountability. I had to learn to look at my parents as souls and not parents, and try to understand who they are. I had to look at past relationships and ask my own role in it. And did I allow my fears to make decisions for me? Did I point the finger a lot? Was I not a nice person in that moment? There were things that I had to really say, hey, this was on me. And what can I learn about who I was then and how I want to apply it in a better way now, that lesson, how I can answer it more productively. So accountability in all of your co-creation is very important. And it's a relief. Mm-hmm. It's a relief to be accountable and to say, I kind of sucked at that. That's on me. Let me figure out why.
Right. I mean, I think that that's what I often find in therapy is not only as a therapist am I holding someone accountable, but that they are then better able to hold themselves accountable. It's like the little voice on your shoulder, or the spirit guide on your shoulder.
Spirit guide saying, you know what you did.
Right.
Right. And to say, you know what, I did do that and I want to change that part of myself. I want to do better so that I can not only feel better within, but then I could pay it forward and teach what I know. I would say everything I learn, I teach. Everything I learn, I give. And it's allowed me to open up parts of my life that I never thought I could because I was so afraid of being wrong, of being flawed, of not being a people pleaser, of not being perfect. It has released all of this in me that I can say, yeah, I understand who I am and I can see how I can improve.
But what I think you're talking about here that you're illustrating so perfectly is where the intersection of psychology and spirituality is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about saying, well, my spirit guides told me I should do
No.
this, so I did. It's about the guiding and the lessons in it all. And
That's right.
and people have heard me say this before, like I always hesitate with that word lessons because I think it can feel really harsh, particularly when people have experienced very, very challenging
Agreed.
losses or
Yes.
life events or even, different lots in life that they were born into. And it doesn't feel great to say, well, your soul chose this.
No,
Even
your soul
though-
might have, and that's why I love that you're saying that, because that's why I say, I don't know that the experience is our choice. I don't think the experience of how maybe your soul has to experience deep grief. And I don't know that the experience is something we choose. I don't believe that at all, actually. I have a very
So
strong.
what do you mean by that? Can you
It
elaborate?
means that I don't think somebody comes into and chooses to have an early passing of someone that they really love in order to experience deep grief. I think it's just grief that they came in, but not the experience.
Got it.
So in other words, unfortunately, I have read, lots of families who've lost a child, and I don't think there's any deeper grief than that. I have zero belief system that family came in and chose that to
Got
learn
it.
something.
Okay. That's really helpful.
Oh, I don't like that theory. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry anyone who's listening, but
No, so they chose to learn about maybe how to feel more deeply or something.
Feel more
like that.
deeply, yes, understand grief on a maybe a tragic level. And I think as souls, as we reincarnate and come back, I think we all have these experiences at some point in our lives, different lives, and maybe we have these experiences. I don't know. I just know that the lessons, however, are ours, but I don't know how they would come into fruition.
Yeah. Sometimes I find myself like negotiating, like, please do me a favor. Don't give me that lesson.
I do a meditation. You'll like this one. I go into the meditation and where I go into my spiritual boardroom and I come in with a contract and I plop it down and I say to them, this is done. And I have a red pen.
I got this one.
We need to renegotiate.
Right. Right. I'm always like, can you maybe give this to me another way?
And they will. And they happily will. They really are very persistent and consistent to get us to see the lesson and understand the lesson. And also through the reflection of others as well. We can really learn from each other if we're choosing to look and to see. And that way, when we do experience something, maybe we have some inspiration on how to navigate through it.
But in talking with them, can that actually change an outcome?
Well, we do have free will. And free will for me, this is my theory on it, is that I don't know that there's necessarily, I think we can maybe get to a point where we don't make some great decisions in our lives, but how we choose to learn from them from a perception standpoint and how we perceive them can be very helpful. And that's sort of how I look at that. So I don't pay attention too much to making a wrong decision. I pay attention to how it feels in my body, the decision, how it flows. I will sometimes sit with something instead of allowing it to just, I can be a little bit, I'll say spontaneous. I'll use that word. Yeah, impulsive. But I've learned to kind of just sit with something if I don't quite feel that it's the right timing, and surrendering over to those types of feelings can be very helpful.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the times where I have been listening to my guides and they tell me don't do that. Not that directly, but they're like, maybe not the best idea. And I'm like, I'm doing it anyway. And I know it's not going to end well.
Why do we do it?
Why do we do it? That's the psychology behind it.
Human beings.
Right.
I always say I'm a spiritualist. I'm not a saint.
I know you say that in the book. I love it. Sometimes I have a little road rage. I keep it in the car. I don't outwardly do it. Right. I love a good F-bomb. I'm really kind of down to earth with all of it because that is who I am. And I started to be very unapologetic about my imperfections and just say, yeah, I'm flawed. I just happen to have a set of tools that helps me understand why and how maybe I can do better. Well, and I think that's the spiritual bypassing that often happens in this work, is that people think that because they're spiritual, they're not also deeply flawed. And both of those things I think that is the most spiritual way to be, is to recognize your humanity and to recognize that we are all deeply flawed and that we're trying to do better here.
Yes.
But
No,
that it doesn't circumvent the human experience.
absolutely. No one comes out unscathed.
Mm-hmm.
And when I hear people say, well, I manifested it and it didn't happen, or I've been praying to my guides, or I've been sitting in higher vibration, I don't understand. I want to say to them, can you just bring it back to the now? Can you bring it back to your experience in this moment? Can we set manifestations out there and set it and forget it, and allow yourself to come and do the work? Because we are here to learn and we are here to do the work. If we went from 0 to 60 and we missed that whole ride, what was the point? And I want to say too, beautiful lessons as well.
Right.
Attitude, sitting in spaces of sort of just looking at your surroundings and being very grateful, or
Patience.
seeing things in nature. Yeah. I mean, there's just so many things that we can be grateful for. And that's part of the experience too.
So let's talk timeline jumping.
Okay. Let's do that.
First of all, maybe you can help me understand this, because why is it feeling now like time is moving faster?
Oh, that's interesting.
Or that's at least my experience.
It could be within your own experience.
Okay.
That you are being brought on a faster timeline for whatever that reason is. You can also reflect at how busy you might be, and time flies, when you're busy. And there's some practical answers to that. Jumping timelines and creating timelines is very fun for me. I enjoy the idea of it all. And the way we do that is by thought. The way we do that is how we think. Also, I want to say, we hear this all the time, you have to keep your vibration high. You have to keep your vibration high. This is exhausting. Mm-hmm. This is not reality. Reality is that we visit here, we get some tools, we get some understanding. We can hear maybe our most beautiful manifestations, our dreams, whatever it is. We want to take all of that, and then we want to come right back to now.
Thank you for saying that, because I feel like sometimes I'm sitting in meditations and I am so expanded and gone. And I mean, yesterday I went early to the gym. I was going to sit outside and meditate, and I did for like 10 minutes. And I was not where I was. And then part of me didn't want to come back, because it feels so good to be in that expanded, connected space. And it's like, how do I carry that? Am I supposed to be carrying that with me all day? Am I supposed to be in that place all day? Got to get to my workout because I got to get to work. And so there's these competing interests that feel and sometimes misaligned.
Yes, I agree. We don't reside there. We visit there. We reside here on the earthly plane. We have to have one foot in, one foot a little out, because if we constantly reside here. Pardon?
I said I like both feet out sometimes.
I do too. Believe me, I do too. But I learned that when I did that, or I was trying to achieve that, and even through all the students that I work with who try to do that, you will come to a point of disappointment, because it's impossible. It's not sustainable. Mm-hmm. We're not meant to maintain there. We're meant to come back here, use that energy, work with that energy, coexist together, go back and forth, jump up and down, and do it that way. When you're in meditation, absolutely sustain. It's like like a beautiful workout, spiritual workout routine, right? Yeah. Go there. When I'm channeling, I'm raising and meeting them there. But everyday life, that's that conversation that I'm having with my guides. They're helping me along, so it's maybe not so exhausting to hear it and to channel and to be there with them. But I am a firm believer that we have to come back down here and ground and work in the now. And that's why timelines can be super powerful when you do that. When you start talking about your manifestations as if they are happening, when you start saying things are in the now. I am already working in abundance. My body is healthy. My body is actively healing. When you start to speak in the now, it will start to take form in its most beautiful and blessed ways. There's something about trusting that the universe is going to show you the best version of what that can look like. But our words and our thoughts and our energy and our intention is very powerful.
So what is a timeline jump? So how do you define we're on this timeline, and then what happens?
The way I have seen it is that there are parallel scenarios going on at the same time of our lives. You want to know how I started to really realize this? I don't think I've spoken about this publicly. I started Pardon?
I said breaking news.
Lean in. I started to have repetitive dreams all in a row, night after night, about my life if I hadn't made certain decisions. And I could not understand this. And you want to talk about from a psychological standpoint. I mean, I was really getting to work on it. Am I holding on to something? Am I regretting something? I mean, I really went there, but I really had no feelings attached to this other than curiosity. And I started to realize through my guides, they were saying to me, you're seeing another timeline. And in that life, I still felt the insecurity. I still felt myself shrinking. I would start to panic to look for my life now. I was like, I don't belong here. I kept saying, I don't belong here in the dream. This went on and on and on. And I realized what I was being shown was to talk and learn about timelines, that we can have sort of this parallel universe going on. But if we truly want to create what is serving us best, that we have to sort of go for what the higher self knows to be true. And that in this particular case, I didn't want to continue to exist in a world where I felt so super insecure, or I had felt like I needed to shrink myself, or I didn't have a voice. And I started to realize that I've done this work. And the more I spoke about it, the more I pulled away and understood why I put myself there in the first place, I started to create this new timeline.
So you were seeing a different potentiality, a different potential outcome.
I truly believe that that's what that was. And the minute I acknowledged it, the dream stopped.
Wow.
The minute I said, oh, that's what you're trying to show me, that I jumped a timeline here and that this can still go on, that we have different choices that we can make. My thing is the most productive way I can tell you to think about it, the most simple way for me, because this is how my brain works, it has to kind of be simple for me, is I feel that if we can draw upon the best parts of self that feel good to us, manifestations, higher self, whatever feels good to you.
The soul, your soul, the essence of your soul.
Exactly, what your soul knows to be true, yes. Bring that into your thought process and give yourself permission to feel how good that feels, that starts to co-create probably one of your best timelines. I don't get too caught up in it, and I'll tell you why. Because my guides say to me, these are rabbit holes to go down, and they can be a tremendous distraction. Get an understanding of how it works for you, and then apply it into your life. I think it's fun to go down the rabbit holes, but just like we don't want to reside up here in this vibration, let's not reside there. Let's just know something's going on. And I have the power to create my most productive timeline if I say yes to that. You have to say yes.
And that's how it all comes together, because if you're listening to your guides and you're being honest with yourself, then you'll know that that next step is the most aligned with your highest self.
That's right.
And that's how flow happens, because when you're in that space, you're moving towards the highest version of yourself.
That's right. And it doesn't mean that it's all going to be rainbows and flowers and all things. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have some tough experiences along the way. It means that you're going to look at it and say, clearly, I am here to learn something, and I will continue to keep my eye on the prize and learn at the same time. They can be done at the same time. Two can be done. And I love that you're saying that, because it's, again, that idea of the co-creation.
And that, I think, is where the psychology can come in and be really helpful, is because you can use what you're hearing, what you're learning, what you're knowing from your meditations with your guides. And if you're not as accountable as you are, MaryAnn, to yourself, a therapist can help you continue to work through this if your guides are sharing this.
Let me say, though, beautiful listeners, I am 54. It took me a hot minute to figure that out. I want you all to know that did not come easily.
No, it never does.
Thank you, because I really had to stop and say, okay, if I'm going to talk the talk, I have to walk the walk. I have to really understand this. And the last 5 years, I would say, of my life, I've done some pretty hardcore work.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And you can feel the alignment in how you talk about things and how you talk about this spiritual work, that it really is about a deeper understanding of yourself.
Thank you. Because I think there's a lot of mysticism around all of this, and, people can really make it feel so out of touch. And I think the best part of my work and what I've experienced through working with my guys is how much they've normalized it for me. I mean, I've had beautiful people around me to help, my mom included. But I think doing this and them showing me that it's not as hard as we want to make it out to be, or it's not so out of touch, has been a tremendous gift that I hope to share with others, because I've got you. It's much easier than we think it is.
Well, and that's a perfect place for us to stop, because I do think you do a beautiful job in the book of just laying it out and making it so relatable and so practical. It's like, oh, I can do this. So tell us about the book, where people can find you. It's not out. Well, it will be out when I air this, but it's not out yet. I got a sneak peek, which I always
get
love.
a sneak peek. It's out September 16th, so it might already be out by the time we talk. And it's the guides book, Mapping Out Life's Journey with Spirit by Your Side. And it tells you how to work with your guides, how to get through roadblocks, how to understand yourself on a deeper level. And I hope it's practical and resonates in your most authentic way. I think one of the things I want to get across is that in this book and in my last book, I try to give people the permission to do it authentically you. Don't look at anybody else. Just lean into self and create your relationship, in this case, with your guides.
Well, MaryAnn, thank you so much. You can find MaryAnn. I'll put all the information in the show notes, but website everywhere. You've got the books.
MaryAnnDiMarco.com. I'm right there. MaryAnn the Medium on Gmail, on Instagram and Facebook.
Well, thank you so much, MaryAnn, for your time, for this incredible conversation, and for really making guides tangible for all of us. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved our conversation. Thank you.
Me too. Like what you heard today and want to hear more? Wondering what comes next and what it all means? Head over to Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere you get your podcasts and hit subscribe. Also, if you could take a minute to rate and review my podcast, I would really appreciate it. Stay tuned as we continue to explore life, death, and the space between.